All right, greetings and salutations. It's your boy Dob coming at you with a new video. Today it's going to be a little bit unique and different because I want to talk about Monster Hunter, not show speedruns, but actually talk about the design philosophy of some of the monsters. And I'm wanting to just try this out just for grins and giggles, is because I've actually been personally sculpting or 3D sculpting the flagship monster from Monster Hunter Wilds. Now, if you're playing Monster Hunter Wilds and you enjoy it, awesome. I'm glad that you guys are enjoying it. I actually think that Arkveld, by the way, and I'll show some pictures of my sculpt of Arkveld, and this is my first time trying to attempt to sculpt a monster from scratch. And by the way, the tools that I've used to make this is on Blender. If you guys need a rundown of how I did it, just let me know in the comments. But I actually wanted to make Arkveld because one of the very first images I found of Arkveld when Wilds was initially being, or the release date was coming up, I saw the artwork and I really identified with Arkveld in that artwork because there was a sense of sadness. There was a sense of the monster feeling like he was chained. There was something that was heavy. And the artwork really did a good job of conveying that theme. And if you look at the end of the artwork, there's actual chains in the back. And it really showed a symbolic nature to the chains in a way. It was like he was being locked in a way. He was being chained. His existence was weighing on the fact that there was a lot of things that was pressing the monster down. And the theme was very sad. Again, he felt like almost like Arkveld would just shed a little tear, single little tear. But I really identified with that piece, and I actually wanted to make something like that. And so I made the sculpt, or this version of Arkveld, my first version of Arkveld with chain, to kind of preemptively plan for another Arkveld sculpt with him just unleashing everything. The chains are broken and his wings are more flung out in the open. He's like raged, unhinged in a way. And so going all the way back to basically wanting to just sculpt Arkveld, because Arkveld I thought was a terrific design in terms of what the Capcom design team came up with. And initially, when I started looking at references for Arkveld, what really stuck out to me was the arcs, if that makes sense. There's so many arcs, literally arcs, with Arkveld's design, all the way from the head. Basically, when you see face front, you can see this kind of A arc going on with his horns inclining into the sides. We have a lot of arcs going on as he does a lot of attacks. His chain-like attacks are very arc related. There's a lot of arcs in the top of his head, arcs in the back. It's like the shark kind of arc thing. So you get it, right? It's a lot of arcs. But I think that out of all the flagship monsters that Capcom has made, Arkveld personally is not on my top 5 of flagships. I could make an entire new video on my personal favorite flagships, but I nevertheless respect the design of Arkveld. I really nevertheless really appreciate the work that the team has done to incorporate the textures, to incorporate, even if you go all the way to the eye of Arkveld, there's just so much detail that, again, most people, obviously people who are playing the game, just don't even realize it. They never recognize how much detail Arkveld has. And it really, when I was making this sculpt, my own sculpt, I was really feeling inferior every time that I looked at screenshots of it because they were so detailed, and I was like, how in the world am I going to pull off these details? I have to have like a computer of just majestic proportions that's able to handle quadrillion polygons. How could I do it? But I just kept trucking through it. But again, the design of Arkveld is outstanding. It's beautiful. It's majestic, like I said earlier. Personally, for me, and we'll go into the design philosophy of Arkveld, but I really like this almost Reaper-like white. It's like a white Reaper, if that makes any sense. It's like this vibe of a menace, an extinct menace, to be more appropriate. And there's a lot of mythical aspects of Arkveld. Obviously, in the game, he's considered to be a legendary threat. In terms of endgame monsters, definitely a challenge. But I do like the fact that there is an almost unsettling nature of Arkveld. He just seems to be very angsty. And obviously, there's a lot of lore. There's a lot of, the fact that this is an extinct wyvern. And one of the key features that sticks out for Arkveld, and of course, if I hadn't brought it up by now, I would be an idiot, would be the chain blade wings. Very unique. I'm actually surprised that Monster Hunter Wilds does not have a chain whip weapon, which is interesting, is because I actually like this aspect of Arkveld. I think this was a very unique choice. I remember in Nergigante and World, there was an aggressive nature of Nergigante. One of the key features of Nergigante was its spikes, and the removal of the spikes would be a stagger in a way. The less spikes, the less of a threat, if that makes sense. Going to Arkveld, there is a relentless, aggressive nature with Arkveld in terms of its chain blade wings, which retract and extend in combat. It's interesting how these are not only, chain whips, but they absorb energy. And I think that is a very unique approach. Again, taking into account the fact that Arkveld is considered a Reaper, like a biomechanical Reaper in a way, and the sinister nature of Arkveld with its chain are very much a standout for me. And speaking of absorption, right? We all know that the elemental absorption is a very key point. Obviously, as the fight with Arkveld grows, naturally it becomes more aggressive. It absorbs the elemental energy and it becomes even more relentless, and it unleashes attacks. And I'm just going to talk about the design philosophy of the fight. It really puts a lot of emphasis on strategy and urgency. And what I mean is that you can't just bum rush Arkveld, especially when he's enraged. You have to be methodical and you have to be strategic. Nergigante, I can go back to Nergigante as an example. In terms of Nergigante, that the strategy for Nergigante is to remove the spikes, to keep clipping those spikes. And the more that you clip those spikes, the more the fight goes easier. And so, again, Arkveld is aggressive. And I have to say that when I was playing the beta for a hot second, and that version of Arkveld in the beta was a beast. He knocked me out a couple times. But it really plays on the urgency and the strategy. And as always, I mean, probably about the 20th time that you fight the monster, you start to get a flow. You get a good dance. You get a good strategy going. It becomes like a dance, literally. But the first times as you fight the monster are always the best. And that really just, again, proves Arkveld's combat design plays out here. So I do want to talk about Arkveld's design for a second. Again, going back to the white Reaper-like extinct wyvern design. He reminds me a lot of Berioth. I don't know if some of you guys can notice that as well. Berioth, to my surprise, flies, unless I'm getting that wrong. If I'm getting that wrong, please let me know in the comments. But Arkveld has a Berioth type of I remember White Fang, I believe it was on World, that type of body exterior. Another word I guess we can call Arkveld in this is White Wraith, which makes a lot of sense. And I think, again, going off with the black and the white, it's very simple, but again, it just kind of shows, again, just the design choice. It just shows the rocks. And I remember when I was sculpting Arkveld that I just recall the whiskers. Arkveld is an old man. And of course, as an old man myself, I can identify, slouching, depressed old man in a way. But I thought that was an interesting design choice to add whiskers, these majestic old whiskers, not just in Arkveld's neck, but also from out of his arms, some from his feet, and obviously from his tail. I like that. I thought that was a very interesting choice to incorporate in terms of just his design in general. And so, all in all, I really like Arkveld. I think that when we get closer and closer to many more updates, I really think that the final outcome, because typically this happens in a lot of Monster Hunter games where the flagship monster returns as Arc-tempered. And I really feel like the real Arkveld, the real fight, we're going to just talk for a second about the strategy behind his combat design, will really show when they release Arc-tempered Arkveld. And I think he will provide an interesting challenge. I remember Malzeno from Rise. Definitely a big difference from flagship Malzeno. I think all in all, Arkveld is amazing. And I don't know, again, this is like my first time trying to do something like this, because I really genuinely want to talk about not just the look and the design of the monsters, but really just the design of the combat, because there's so much to it. Arkveld is a wyvern, and he's an in-game Apex flagship that is very, very much unique in its chains and its chain weapons and stuff like that. And I really want to notate the design team, the concept design team, the 3D design team for creating Arkveld. And I had to listen to Arkveld's theme, the Guardian themes, his main theme, just to try to get immersed into creating and sculpting Arkveld myself. And it's just danger. There's just this urgency. He's just dangerous. The spikes again on the front of his mouth, the rocks, how they have these arcs. Again, I can go back. Funny I talk about the arcs, right? The arcs on the patterns of the stones and the skeleton almost. There's so many of these sharp edges, and there's just a lot of menacing properties about Arkveld. From the front, from the side, from the top, it provokes a sense, again, of just a saddening, almost depressed, but really enraged monster. We talked about the design, we talked about the visuals, we talked about the combat, we talked about the lore. If you guys know more about the lore, because I know that there are heaps of videos on the lore, let me know in the comments. Something that I probably missed, or something that I am going to do another Arkveld sculpt. I'm gonna call this sculpt B. The one I showed was A. B will be basically him unleashed, and I'll keep you guys posted on that. So anyways, that's it. Hopefully I can keep doing these Monster Hunter Wild design philosophy videos, and I definitely want to do LDAWB. I've heard his theme heaps of times, and I love everything about the music. To you guys who are like sound designers, I envy you guys, because you guys are amazing. LDAWB's design is amazing, and I really would like to talk about it next time. But thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it. Thank you to my Patreons for supporting me in New Zealand, trying to make it out here. and you guys make it possible. Thank you. So until then, I'll catch you guys on the next video. Peace.
Look, heading toward the middle of the summer, dodging particles, recover from the vibration spiraling off the arbor. So knocking at the front entrance, knowing it's gon' offer food. Coordinates impossible to reach, growing hostile in the streets. Sometimes dodging with the feet, can't believe a chance to feed you what's important enough to me. In the world with the Lord, perverted by sorcery.